Hey guys, welcome to our video lesson in which we're going to be introduced to solving rational equations. So when we solve rational equations, we need to do a lot of things like we did when we were adding and subtracting, but there's one big difference, which you will see once we get started. So in this paragraph, it says, when solving rational equations, it is important to identify the excluded values in the original equation, as some algebraic steps may have changed the equation, resulting in these values being a solution. So when this happens, we have an extraneous solution, which we are familiar with. So basically what we need to do, guys, we're so used to finding the excluded values that once we solve, we need to make sure that none of those solutions are one of our excluded values. And if they are, it's extraneous, and we just would not include that as a solution. Okay, so we are going to solve each rational equation. I have the steps over here in a box. What we need to do first is complete any possible factoring. So generally what we want to do is the factoring in the denominator, because we are going to find a least common denominator when we're solving. We just do something different with it. So on the left side, I have x minus 5, which cannot be factored, but on the right side, I have 2x minus 10, which can be factored to 2 times x minus 5. So now we're going to think about what is the least common denominator. Like if we were adding these, what would both denominators need to have? Well, they would both need to have a 2 and an x minus 5. But what we do differently with the least common denominator now is right here in step 4, multiply every term by the LCD and simplify. So I'm not saying multiply by every term's numerator and denominator. I'm just saying term in general. So that really means you just need to multiply it by the numerator. So I'm going to rewrite my equation down here so I have more room. And I'm going to write the denominator in factored form. So the LCD, which we just talked about, is 2 times x minus 5. So I need to multiply every term times 2 times x minus 5. And that's just in the top. So if it helps you to put a 1 underneath that, do that. So on the left side, I'm going to do the same thing. And what you see here is now we kind of have two multiplication problems, which we're used to doing. Remember, when we're multiplying, if there's a common factor in the numerator and the denominator, we can cross it out. So if we cross off, there's an x minus 5 in both of those. And here, both the 2 and the x minus 5 cancel. And of course, these ones we're not going to need to write. So do you see what happened here? When we multiply every term by the least common denominators, it cancels everything in the denominator. So what we're left with over here on the left is just the 2, and then times 3x plus 7. And on the right, we're left with 5x plus 17. And now we just have a simple equation to solve, which we couldn't have solved if we still had denominators. So here we go. Let's distribute our 2. So 6x plus 14 equals 5x plus 17. Let's get our x's together. So x plus 14 equals 17. And then subtract 14, x equals 3. Now, we just need to confirm that 3 would not be one of our excluded values. You can do this in the beginning or the end, identifying the excluded values. But we would only have one from this factor x minus 5, so we know x cannot equal 5. Well, our solution is 3, so that should be good. All right, let's do letter B. I have 2x minus 9 over x minus 7 plus x over 2 equals 5 over x minus 7. So the first thing we're going to do is identify our least common denominator. Do any factoring you can in the denominators. Well, there's no factoring here, so let's make sure we just include everything we see in the denominators. We have a 2 and we have an x minus 7. So that covers everything I see. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply every single term times that LCD. And I'm going to be using parentheses. plus x over 2 times 2 times x minus 7. And you don't have to write these all separately. I'll show you in class how we can write less since I'm spilling over into example C, but that's okay. Okay, so now that I've done that, what I'm going to do is cancel out anything that appears in the numerator and the denominator. So in my first fraction, the x minus 7's cancel. In the second one, the 2's cancel. And in the third one, the x minus 7's cancel. So we write just what is left over. So I have 2x minus 9 times 2 plus x times x minus 7. And that equals 5 times 2. Okay, let's distribute and combine like terms. 2x times 2 is 4x, negative 9 times 2 is negative 18, x times x is x squared, and x times negative 7 is negative 7x, and 5 times 2 is 10. On the left side, I'm going to write my x squared first. I'm going to take 4x minus 7x, which is negative 3x, and then I have negative 18, and that equals 10. Oh boy, we have a quadratic, right? An x squared term. So we need it set equal to 0. So I'm going to subtract 10. So what I have now is x squared minus 3x minus 28 equals 0. I'm going to factor what multiplies to negative 28 and has a difference of negative 3. Well, that would be a negative 7 and a positive 4. So I have the factors x minus 7 times x plus 4, which give us the potential solutions of positive 7 and negative 4. But what we need to check is that neither of those would be an excluded value from our original. And looking at the LCD, we see that we do have the factor x minus 7, which means x could not equal positive 7. So what we have to do is cross off that one, and we only have one solution of x equals negative 4. Okay, guys, we'll continue this in class.